guys, welcome to Intellipaat's DevOps Week, and today is day 9. So in the previous session we looked into NPM, which is DevOps tool, and again we're going to start off with a new tool called TeamCity. Now let's take a quick glance at the agenda. First we'll start off by understanding what is TeamCity, then look into the features of TeamCity. Once that is done, we'll show you how to install TeamCity, and once we do that and once you do the installation, then we move on to the hands-on of TeamCity where you can also learn and also practice it. So that will be the last part of this particular session.
So before moving on with the session, please subscribe to our channel.
And also hit the bell icon for the upcoming updates from our channel. And also if you enjoy our content, you can leave a like.
Now let us understand what TeamCity is. TeamCity is a tool developed by JetBrains to manage different builds of projects and perform continuous integration and continuous deployment. Though it's not open source, it provides a free version with limited abilities. Also, even though it does not have the same integration support as Jenkins, it comes pre-installed with all the widely used dependencies. Now, when you think about a CI/CD tool, that is continuous integration and continuous deployment tool, the first thing that comes to your mind is Jenkins. And Jenkins is an open source tool, and it has support for a wide variety of tools that are available online. But the same can't be said with TeamCity, even though it is also a CI/CD tool. But what TeamCity does provide is that when you install TeamCity, it comes pre-bundled with the most widely used dependencies like your Maven or Ant or Git or anything that you require that is widely used. Now, how TeamCity works is pretty simple. When a developer writes the code or develops the code, he pushes it to a server. And then the code is taken from the server and given to TeamCity for building. Now, if the build is successful, then TeamCity deploys the application. And after every build, even if it's successful or not, a comprehensive report is created, which is then provided to the developer and the admin. And in case a deployment is not very successful, or there are a lot of errors, then TeamCity automatically identifies those who are responsible. If suppose a developer was configured as a person to be notified when the deployment failed, then TeamCity will automatically identify the developer and the admin. Now let us go ahead and see what are some of the features of TeamCity. Configuration. TeamCity allows build engineers to have efficient configurations for their projects. It also gives them multiple methods to do so. What this basically means is that TeamCity provides the ability for a person to extensively configure a build if he wants to. Suppose if you had a sample project which you wanted to build using Maven. Now you can go inside that build and edit it and configure whatever details you want to. You can choose whichever specific version of the Maven you want to use. You can choose also when to execute the particular build. And these are all the features. It also allows you to install extra plugins that are not provided with the TeamCity when you install it. So you can install it externally and then use it as a plugin inside TeamCity. So it allows for extensive configuration. VCS interoperability. TeamCity has an excellent ability to pull and comprehend source code from version control systems. Interoperability here means the ability of a system to pull and exchange information. And in this scenario, what happens is that TeamCity can excellently pull and comprehend the source code that is being used in a version control system. Suppose your code was inside a Git repository, then TeamCity will be able to seamlessly pull that information. It will be able to pull that source code with a lot of ease, and then will be able to comprehend it with a lot of ease. Key integrations. TeamCity has great support for key tools like version control systems, build tools, and package repos. What this basically means is that TeamCity has seamless integration for a lot of different types of DevOps tools like version control systems, could be Git, build tools, could be Maven, and package repos. Though TeamCity has limited number of tools it can support, it supports all of those tools perfectly. Build history. TeamCity stores the comprehensive history of all builds, failed builds, successful builds, and descriptive analytics of their build process. Now, if you had a build that failed, or if you had a build that was successful, TeamCity will keep a comprehensive history of how they were executed, what happened during the execution, and what was the result of it. Code quality tracking. TeamCity package includes tools like IntelliJ IDEA and Reshaper Code that help with code quality tracking. TeamCity package includes tools like IntelliJ IDEA and Reshaper Code that help with keeping the code quality high. What these tools do is that they make sure that there are no security vulnerabilities in the code, and they make sure that the best standard practices are being used based on what kind of language is being used or based on the requirements of your company or your team. User management. TeamCity employs an easy-to-use user management system that helps admins or team leads to perform duties like feature assignment. This helps in keeping track of who is assigned what kind of role, and this makes it easier to manage a big group of people. Build infrastructure. TeamCity provides support for multitude of build tools and multiple agents for creating more efficient infrastructure. Now, TeamCity agents are different from the TeamCity server. They are used to perform jobs like building an application. If you have multiple agents, that means you can run multiple jobs simultaneously. The more the number of agents you have, the more efficient your work process will be. System maintenance. TeamCity provides the users with analysis of how well the builds are functioning and keeps a constant check on their health. Basically, TeamCity gives an option to the user where he or she can check the health of a job that is being performed. And if there are any errors that have occurred during the execution of the job, then an immediate notification would be sent to those who are responsible. Guys, now that we have understood what TeamCity is and what are some of its features, we can go ahead and install it. Let's look at the prerequisites for TeamCity. Have an OpenJDK 9, have at least 2 GB of RAM. So having at least 2 GB of RAM means that we'll have to use the CentOS Marketplace AMI again. So let's go ahead and do that. Coming to your AWS console, you'll go ahead with launch instance and go to the AWS Marketplace, type CentOS because that's the operating system we will be using, and click on the first one that comes up. Click on continue. We will be using t2.medium, review and launch, previous, add an SSH rule, all TCP, anywhere, review and launch, and you'll launch it use an existing key pair that you have. Since I've already launched my own AMI before this, I won't be launching it here, but you guys go ahead and launch it. And name it TeamCity. Now let's go ahead and launch it. Copy the IP address, open a putty tool, or use SSH, whichever you're comfortable with. Paste your IP address, connection, make it 180 so it lasts longer. Colors, default background, we'll make it green so it's a little more visible. 16. Okay, now let's put our key in and launch it. Now remember, wait for it to start running and get initialized before you start. Open. Login as CentOS. Clear the screen. We will sudo su so we don't have to keep typing sudo every time. We access at root. Now the prerequisite is to install Java and have 2 GB of RAM. We have 2 GB of RAM. Let's go ahead and install Java. cd opt. Command for that is yum install Java 1.8.0 OpenJDK Devil. Press enter. Yes, please. Now we've installed our Java. Clear the screen, and now we'll go ahead and install wget. Yum install wget, because we'll be using wget to get our TeamCity file link. Okay. Clear the screen. It's already installed. Okay, now we have wget. Let's go to the browser and get the link for TeamCity. TeamCity. TeamCity is developed by the company called JetBrains. They have many other softwares that they make. Now, when you get to the website for TeamCity, click on Get TeamCity, and it will show you download, but it will be .exe. But we need the tar.gz file. Click on the .exe file, .exe, and click on tar.gz. This is for Linux or macOS. As you can see, it will automatically start downloading. Cancel it because we want the link address. We don't want to download the whole file in our local system. After you cancel it, press Ctrl J for looking at your downloads, because that's where we'll get the link address for our file. And this is only for Chrome, but you can check it in Firefox also. And when you press Ctrl J, you'll find the history of the downloads you have done. And since we cancel this one, but we have the link address here, we will right click this and copy the link address. We'll come back to our instance, use the wget command, paste the link address and press enter. And we'll do ls to see if it's downloaded. Yes, it's downloaded properly. Let's clear the screen and let's untar the file. For that, the command is tar zxf TeamCity, press enter, and we have our TeamCity untarred. Let's go inside TeamCity, the bin folder, and now we will start TeamCity. For that, the command is /run capital A lowercase ll .sh start. Let's make sure that's the command. Okay, fine. And let's press.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat provides DevOps online training validated and certified by NASSCOM Future Skills and IBM. The course link is given in the description below. Now, let's continue with the session.
Start running your TeamCity. Now that our TeamCity has started, we need to see on which port TeamCity has started. To check that, we will first have to find out the process ID of our TeamCity. So for that, we'll first clear the screen and come back to our PowerPoint. To find out at which TeamCity is open, the process ID is needed. For that, we'll need the command ps-ef grep java. So the command is ps-ef grep java. That's a lot of data, but the process ID for our TeamCity will most probably be the first one. That will be, the process ID is 13420. Let's just make sure this is the correct one. It's the TeamCity's process ID. But we see that there's a TeamCity agent also here. This is not the one we want. We want the direct server's process ID. So we'll copy that, come over here. Using the process ID, the port at which TeamCity is running can be found out using netstat-anp grep and process ID. So let's clear the screen first. Netstat -anp grep and the process ID that we copied, and press enter. And we can see that TeamCity is running on the port 8111. Let's go to our browser and launch it. Close this, copy the link address, paste the link address, :8111. That's the one we found, and press enter. And you will see that TeamCity is starting and initializing its server components. So if you install TeamCity correctly, you will get this screen for setting up TeamCity. TeamCity first start. TeamCity server stores server configuration settings, project definitions, build results, and caches on disk in a data directory. This is where all your data will be stored, all the metadata and everything. Any data that will be produced in performing a job will be stored over here. Make sure this is the one you want. So we will proceed. Actually, let's make this OPT. Okay, this is the one we want, so we'll proceed with this. So whatever data we will enter will be stored inside some kind of database. In our case, we'll be using the internal one because we're just going to practice. But working for a company, for a project, you can use either one of these: MySQL, Oracle, MS SQL Server, anyone. But we'll go ahead with internal one and then proceed. And then it will ask you to read through the license agreement and agree to them. Standard procedure. Accepts license agreement. I do not want to send anonymous users statistics. Let's continue. Here we will create an account. We'll go ahead and use admin and enter the password. and create an account. Now this is a generic ID we're using. If someone else also wanted to log in, he could use the same password that I've entered over here. Now we're inside TeamCity. So our installation has been completed. Our setup and installation. We have chosen the place where the job data will be stored, and we have chosen internal database for our purposes. And we can move on with the hands-on of TeamCity. Now let us go ahead and see what all steps we'll be following. The first step will be to run TeamCity and set up the admin. And the second step will be to configure the email notifier. The third will be to create a project. Fourth will be to create the build steps needed. And the fifth will be starting the execution. Run TeamCity and set up the admin. This will give us administrator access. Instead of getting administrator access, what we did was create a generic ID and named it admin. And we're using that as our access ID. But it's basically the same process. Let's go to the next step. To configure the email notifier. This helps in being notified when deployments fail or something else serious that requires attention. Let's go ahead and do that. Before we set up our email notifier, let's go to administration and our authentication. So the authentication in TeamCity in this version is built in. If we wanted to use another authentication system, we would have to use the Pro version of TeamCity. But since we are using the trial version or the version with limited ability, we can only rely on the built-in authentication. Let's load a preset and we will select Active Directory with LDAP with NTLM. This will give us an Active Directory that people can go forward using their Active Directory credentials. Now let us go to licenses. Let's see the changes. And then let's go to licenses. And here we can see the version of TeamCity we're using and the maximum number of agents we are allowed and the maximum number of build configurations we are allowed. Now if you wanted more number of agents, then we'll have to use the Pro version. If you wanted more number of builds, then we'll have to use the Pro version. In this version, we restricted to only 3 agents. Now let's go and configure our email notifier. It will be under here, under server administration. Click on email notifier. And the details that we'll need to configure are the SMTP host, the SMTP port, and send email messages from. Now the details necessary for this will be acquired from the Exchange team. Now in your company, there will be an Exchange team for sure, and you can acquire the information from them for what to add here. These 3 configurations are mandatory, and without this, we will not be able to configure our email notifier. And now we can check diagnostics. Here we'll be able to see how TeamCity is performing, maintaining, and behaving. Now using diagnostics, we can keep track of how TeamCity is performing, how well it is performing. That if some kind of big error happens, we can see that over here. Or if a lot of memory is being used, then we can figure that out over here. We can check other things also like VCS status, version control status. Since we haven't configured one here, it's not showing anything. We can check the server logs, internal properties, logging presets, WebSocket status, setting persist status, caches, and etc. Let's go back to troubleshooting. And under troubleshooting, if we zoom out a bit, we can see that we have an option to restart the server in case TeamCity is very slow or if it's consuming too much memory. And we can save the thread dump or the memory snapshot. And we can use the memory snapshot to troubleshoot and see what kind of error we were getting before, why TeamCity was being slow. And you can also see what kind of Java configuration there is. The Java configuration here is 1.8.0, and we're going to leave that the same. Now let's head to plugins list. As I told before, that TeamCity, when you install it, it comes with a bunch of pre-bundled plugins, which means that when you install TeamCity, you will have a list of plugins that come with it. Like you have your Apache Ant, or you have your Maven, or you have your VCS support, or Amazon EC2 support, command line, artifact deployer, Docker support, .NET client support, RSS feed support, VCS support for Git, Jira integration, and etc. Now, if you want a plugin that's not over here, you can always go and upload it by yourself, or you can browse the plugin repository. This way, you can always add more dependencies that you may need using the Browse Plugins repository option. And also, if you don't have internet and your TeamCity is running on intranet and you want to install a plugin that's not available online, then you can always use this option to upload the plugin zip file and choose it from your local host and upload it over here. Also, now that we have gone through our plugin list and we've seen our diagnostics, we've set up our email notifier, we've checked our authentication, we've done the extra steps required for admin. Now, if you come up here, we can see that if you click on admin and my settings and tools, you can go and check which group you're part of. All users here. You can check the notification rules. You can add new rules.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat provides DevOps online training validated and certified by NASSCOM Future Skills and IBM. The course link is given in the description below. Now, let's continue with the session.
And you can check the VCS usernames. Now, if you come up here and look at the agents, you can see that there's a default agent. So when you click the agents tab here, it shows you how many agents are currently available to you, which you can toggle on and off using this toggle. You can also go ahead and check which all agents are disconnected or which are unauthorized, and etc. You can also go and check the statistics of the agents while they're performing a job over here, or which all jobs are being performed by how many agents. Now, if we go and check our build queue tab over here, this will tell us how many jobs are waiting to get executed. But since we haven't assigned any job to any agent, the build queue is empty. Now let's go to projects and create a project. Now you can go two ways with creating the project. You can either start by using a repository or you can manually do it. And since we have a repository, we'll just paste the link over here for our repository. Let's get our repository. This is the repository we'll be using. github.com, GK DevOps, and Pet Clinic. Copy the link, paste it in repository URL. And since this is a public repository, we do not need to enter a username or password. But inside a company, you might be using private repositories. So you might need to enter username and password. Let's go ahead and proceed. Now it will verify whether the repository is valid or not. And if it's verified, then it'll give you this message: the connection to the VCS repository has been verified. And it will auto detect some of the things like project name, that is Pet Clinic, automatically, and the build configuration name. But I want to change my build configuration name. I will make it Pet Clinic -job. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and proceed. Now, what is happening here is that TeamCity is automatically detecting build steps by scanning through the code. And as you can see, it's already detected Maven, which is the build tool we'll be using to build our application. And since TeamCity has already identified Maven as a build step, we'll just click on it and use the selected one. And as you can see, now we have a build step for Maven. Now, before we add any more build steps to it, let's edit this build step to more to our liking. So we'll add a step name to it. It will be Maven_build. And execute step. So what this basically means over here, if all previous steps finish successfully, only then execute it. If there are any steps before this Maven build step, then we'll wait for all those steps to be finished and only then it will build this. And only if they are successful. You can choose whatever you want. Only if the build status is successful, even if some of the previous steps fail, always, even if the build stop command was issued. But we are going to be using if all previous steps finish successfully. These are the default configurations. Come here and it will show us the Maven that we'll be using, 3.0.5. And this is not the only one you can use. You can drop down and you can see which all versions are there. And you can use any one you want. Or you can, if you want more advanced settings, you can click on Maven tool configuration. But before that, let's save our configurations. Edit, come back and click on Maven tool configuration. Now you might be wondering how Maven came over here. As we have talked before, Maven comes pre-built or pre-installed with TeamCity. So when you install TeamCity, Maven will be bundled with it and be installed with it. And it will come with various versions. You can use any one of these. And suppose you want to use a version that's not available over here, you can go ahead and install it manually. But we will be using 3.5.4, and let's make it our default. Set as default version. Now that we've set it as default version, we can go back. But if you want to install another tool, you can always click on install tool and choose whichever one you want. Make 3.5.4. And you can come down and configure the JDK you want to use. I'll leave it at default because that's the one I want to use. And there's nothing else to configure for my application. But if you want to configure something else, you can go ahead and configure it, like artifact repository, or choose the coverage runner, or run the step within a Docker container if you wish to. Let's go ahead and save it. And we have our Maven build step. Now let's go ahead and add another build step. Since we need to practice a bit, this build step will only include our command line to give a simple message. So let's type command line, press enter. The step name will be command line. And we'll run a custom script. And this is the custom script. We'll enter a custom script over here. Echo a simple message. This job was successful. Now we'll go ahead and save this build step too. And now we can see that there are two build steps. You can edit either one of them using the edit button over here. And you can also add another build step. Depends on the number of build steps you need based on your project. We can also reorder the build step, the order in which we want these builds to be executed in. Let's go ahead and put command line on top and then apply it. We'll see that the command line is the first build step, and now second build step is Maven build. And since we put a configuration that Maven build step will only be executed if all previous steps are finished successfully. So suppose if this command line had an error in it, then this build step will not be executed because we have put a condition that if all previous steps are finished successfully, only then this build step will be executed. Now last, let's go add another build step. This will be used to package our application. Adding a build step, let's write Maven because that's the tool we'll be using. Runner type we'll be using, Maven. And let's add a step name to it, Maven underscore package. And that's all we need to configure. Let's go ahead and save it. And this will be our third build step. Now let us understand what triggers are. Triggers are used to add builds to queue either when an event occurs, like a VCS check-in, or periodically with some configurable interval. What this basically means is that whenever an event occurs, we can go ahead and start a build process, or we can go ahead and start a build. Like when VCS check-in happens, or periodically a configurable interval, like in those kind of events, we can go ahead and trigger a build. So there are many types of triggers. If we check here, there is the VCS trigger, schedule trigger, finish build trigger, VCS trigger. The build is triggered when changes are detected in version control system, and when these changes are detected in the version control system, the build is automatically executed. If you wanted to edit your VCS trigger, you can go ahead and click on edit. In advanced options, you can configure the details you want to configure, and you can even add new rules for it, new trigger rules. So let's go back to the build steps, and we can see that we have all our build steps here: command line, Maven build, and Maven package. Also, let's not forget to set a goal for our build. Here's the package goal. Let's save it. Now that we have all our build steps, we can go ahead and run this build. But suppose if you didn't want to use the UI for this, if you're a person who's more inclined to code all this, you can always use this toggle, where you can toggle to the coded version of this, where you can see that the same things that I did in the UI will be present in our code. The Maven build, Maven package, and the command line. The echo this job was successful. So it really depends on how you like to work on things. You can either use this, or you can toggle it and use UI, or you can use both, whichever suits your needs. Now we'll go ahead and click on run. and this will run all the build steps in their order. If you want to see what's happening, you can go to the build log, and this will show you how the steps are being executed. As you can see, the first step has been executed. Since the first step has been executed, it can go on with the second step, and now it's executing the second step. In our second step, we were using Maven, and for that purpose, it's downloading all the dependencies it needs from the central repository of Maven. If we come back to the overview, we can see how long the progress has taken and the status of how many build steps have happened. We can check our agents also, and we can see our default agent is the one that is executing the build steps. The TeamCity server itself doesn't do it. The TeamCity agents are the ones that will be executing the build step. We go back. You can also see the agent that is being used to execute the build steps over here. And you can see that the log is also stored, that is triggered by me on the date 15th October 2019 at 11:36. These build logs will be stored because if somebody wanted to access what happened on a particular build, they can access it using the build log. It's taking some time because this is the first time that it's building the application. So it has a lot of dependencies to download, and it's done that. And now it's preparing a report. As we can see, it tells us the time it took to execute our builds, the test pass, the agent that did it, and triggered by. And if you click the changes tab over here, you can see the changes that happen. But since we executed a build only once, there are no changes to be seen over here. Go to test, it will show all the test cases that it ran. And the build log, it will show all the build steps, like step 1 command line, step 2 Maven build, step 3 Maven package. And it'll show that the build is finished. And the parameters, all these are the parameters that are configured, but most of these parameters are default, except some of them. And if you want, you can check the artifacts also, but there are no user-defined artifacts in this build, and the Maven build information. Now we can go to the home page and we can see the list of jobs that have been done. And since we only executed one job, there was only one job over here. Also, if you click on the job and if you click on the job name, you can see the number of builds that were executed on it. Since we execute only one build, we can see that this is the only build that is there and is the one that passed properly. If suppose I missed a comma in our command line and I said the job was successful without a quotation mark, then it will not work and it will show as a build that has not been successfully built or successfully executed. And if you had a list of builds, you can check one by one, or you can go ahead and check them by their status. So suppose if you only want to see successful build, you can click on this. If you want to see failed builds, you can click on this. If you want to see builds that failed to start, over here, or if you want to see cancelled builds, if you want to see pinned builds or start builds, etc. And if we come back over here on the dashboard, you can see whichever projects are there and whichever jobs were passed on it. So guys, that's it for the hands-on. And now we've finished with learning what TeamCity is. We learned what TeamCity is. We've learned what are the features of TeamCity. We learned how to install TeamCity, and we had some practice on it. So guys, that's it for today. And I hope you understood how to use the tool.
Just a quick info guys. Intellipaat provides DevOps online training validated and certified by NASSCOM Future Skills and IBM. The course link is given in the description below.
Okay guys, we've come to the end of this session. I hope this session was helpful and informative for you. If you have any queries, leave a comment down below.
Thanks for watching.